What if everything you've ever known, every memory, every sensation, every moment of your existence, was nothing more than code running on a machine built by survivors of a world that already ended? This isn't just another simulation theory. This is something far more unsettling. The idea that we're not living in the original timeline, but in a carefully reconstructed digital afterlife created by the remnants of humanity after a catastrophic collapse. The question isn't whether we're in a simulation, it's whether we're living in a memorial, a digital museum built by those who survived the end of everything. Let me take you down this rabbit hole, because the evidence is stranger than you think. The simulation hypothesis itself isn't new. Philosophers and scientists have debated it for years. Nick Bostrom's famous argument suggests that if advanced civilizations can create realistic simulations, and if they create many of them, then statistically we're more likely to be inside one than in base reality. But what if the reason they created these simulations wasn't curiosity or entertainment? What if it was desperation? Imagine a scenario where humanity faced extinction. Perhaps a nuclear war, a climate catastrophe, an asteroid impact, or a pandemic that wiped out 99% of the population. The survivors, living in underground bunkers or radiation-shielded colonies, possessed advanced technology but existed in a dying world. Their solution? Upload consciousness into a simulation, a digital recreation of Earth before the fall, where billions could live again in a world that no longer exists. This would explain several anomalies in our reality that conspiracy theorists and quantum physicists alike have struggled to understand. First, consider the Mandela effect, the phenomenon where large groups of people share false memories of events that supposedly never happened. Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s. The Berenstain Bears being spelled Berenstein. Luke, I am your father, versus the actual line, no, I am your father. What if these aren't false memories at all? What if they're glitches, remnants of previous simulation versions, updates to the code that didn't quite erase everyone's memory perfectly? When programmers update software, sometimes old data bleeds through. Cache files remain. Legacy code creates conflicts. The post-apocalyptic simulation theory suggests that our reality has been rebooted multiple times, refined and debugged, with each iteration attempting to create a more stable world. But the human mind, even in digital form, might retain fragments of previous versions, echoes of realities that were overwritten. Now let's talk about quantum mechanics, because this is where things get truly bizarre. The double-slit experiment demonstrates that particles behave differently when observed versus when they're not. An electron can exist in multiple states simultaneously until someone measures it, at which point it collapses into a single state. This is exactly how a sophisticated simulation would function. Think about video games. The computer doesn't render the entire game world simultaneously, that would require infinite processing power. Instead, it only renders what the player can see. The rest exists in a state of probability, generated only when needed. What if our universe operates the same way? What if reality only renders when consciousness observes it, conserving the processing power of whatever system is running our simulation? This becomes even more compelling when you consider the speed of light, the universe's ultimate speed limit. In computational terms, this looks suspiciously like a processing cap, a maximum rate at which information can propagate through the system. Why would the universe have a speed limit unless it was constrained by the hardware running it? The Planck length, the smallest possible unit of space, beyond which physics breaks down, resembles pixel resolution. Below a certain scale, reality becomes grainy, uncertain, undefined. Just like a digital image pixelates when you zoom in too far, the fabric of spacetime itself has a resolution limit. But here's where the post-apocalyptic element becomes crucial. If we're in a simulation, who built it, and why? The standard simulation hypothesis suggests bored future humans or aliens created us as an experiment or entertainment. The post-apocalyptic version offers a darker, more poignant answer: we built it ourselves, as a lifeboat from extinction. Evidence for a past apocalypse can be found in our own collective unconsciousness. Every culture on Earth has flood myths, stories of a great deluge that destroyed previous civilizations. The Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah's Ark, Hindu texts describing Manu and the Great Flood, Aztec legends of world-ending waters. What if these aren't myths but corrupted data files, memories from base reality that leaked into the simulation, fragmented stories of the actual disaster that ended the original world? Archaeological anomalies support this too. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek device from 100 BCE that functioned as a sophisticated astronomical calculator, technology that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. Or the Baghdad battery, suggesting electrical knowledge in ancient Mesopotamia. The precision of the Great Pyramid's construction, aligned to true north within 1/15 of a degree. These out-of-place artifacts might be remnants of the original pre-apocalypse civilization, echoes of advanced technology that the simulation's creators included as Easter eggs, or perhaps errors, data from the real world accidentally imported into the digital recreation. Now consider the feeling of déjà vu, that uncanny sense that you've lived a moment before. Neurologists explain it as a minor brain glitch, a mistimed signal between memory formation and conscious perception. But what if it's actually a loop in the code? What if certain subroutines repeat, and our consciousness occasionally recognizes the pattern? The simulation might also explain the Fermi paradox, the disturbing silence of the universe despite billions of potentially habitable planets. Where is everyone? Perhaps they don't exist. Perhaps the simulation only generated detailed code for Earth and its immediate surroundings, with the rest of the universe existing as low-resolution background scenery, never meant to be visited. The stars are wallpaper, distant galaxies are texture files, and we're alone not because alien civilizations are rare, but because the programmers only bothered to create one. Glitches in the Matrix, those strange moments when reality seems to break, might be exactly what they appear to be, software bugs. People report seeing the same stranger in multiple locations simultaneously, cars that vanish from roads without explanation, objects that appear and disappear. Online forums are filled with these accounts, dismissed as coincidence or false memory. But if you were running a simulation of billions of conscious entities, glitches would be inevitable. The system would occasionally struggle with pathfinding algorithms, causing NPCs, non-player characters, the beings with less complex consciousness, to behave strangely or appear in impossible locations. Reality would occasionally lag, creating those moments where time seems to skip or slow. The post-apocalyptic simulation theory also addresses a philosophical problem that has haunted humanity, the problem of evil. Why does suffering exist? Why do bad things happen to good people? In a simulation designed by survivors of an apocalypse, the answer becomes clearer: they're preparing us. Think about it. If the original world ended due to humanity's failures, our violence, our greed, our inability to cooperate, then the simulation serves as a training ground. We experience suffering not because of cosmic indifference, but because the program is designed to teach us lessons the original humanity learned too late. Every crisis, every challenge, every moral test is a curriculum item meant to ensure that if we ever return to base reality, we'll be better than our predecessors. This reframes our entire existence. We're not random biological accidents stumbling through a meaningless universe. We're digital souls in a carefully designed rehabilitation program, learning from the mistakes that killed the real world. Some researchers point to synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem too perfect to be random, as evidence of intelligent design within the simulation. Carl Jung studied these extensively, suggesting they revealed a deeper layer of reality. In a post-apocalyptic simulation, synchronicities might be the programmers intervening, nudging events toward specific outcomes, guiding consciousness toward growth and understanding. Your intuition, that inner voice warning you or guiding you, might not be your subconscious at all. It might be the system itself, running higher-level code that interfaces with your consciousness, offering hints and guidance from outside your perceived reality. The déjà vu, the Mandela effects, the synchronicities, they're not bugs. They're features. They're ways the simulation communicates with us, reminding us that there's something beyond the veil, that our reality has authors and purpose. But here's the terrifying implication: if we're in a post-apocalyptic simulation, what happens when the program ends? What if the simulation has a goal, a completion state? What if, once humanity within the simulation reaches a certain level of moral or technological development, the program terminates and we're uploaded back into base reality, a reality that might still be a wasteland? Or worse, what if the simulation is failing? What if climate change, nuclear tensions, and social collapse within our digital world mirror the original apocalypse? What if we're not learning the lessons, and the program is heading toward the same catastrophic conclusion that destroyed the first version of Earth? Some theorists suggest that near-death experiences offer a glimpse behind the curtain. People who've been clinically dead and revived often report similar phenomena, moving through a tunnel toward light, encountering deceased loved ones, experiencing a life review. What if these aren't glimpses of an afterlife, but moments when consciousness briefly disconnects from the simulation and perceives the machinery beneath? The tunnel could be the loading sequence as consciousness transfers between states. The life review could be the system accessing your memory files. The deceased loved ones might be archived consciousness files stored in the same database, briefly accessible during the disconnect. This brings us to dreams. Dreams have always been mysterious, these nightly journeys into impossible landscapes where physics breaks down and logic evaporates. In the simulation theory, dreams might be background processes running while your primary consciousness rests, or they might be glimpses of other simulations running parallel to ours, other versions of reality being tested simultaneously. Lucid dreaming, the ability to become conscious within dreams and manipulate them, resembles gaining admin access to the code. People who master lucid dreaming report abilities that shouldn't be possible: flying, walking through walls, manifesting objects from thin air. If dreams are another layer of the simulation with looser physics parameters, then lucid dreamers have learned to hack their local reality. Now let's address the most disturbing question: if we're in a simulation, are we real? Does our consciousness actually exist, or are we philosophical zombies, NPCs with no genuine inner experience, simply responding to stimuli according to programmed parameters? The post-apocalyptic simulation theory offers hope here. If the simulation was created to preserve human consciousness after an extinction event, then we're not artificial constructs, we're the uploaded minds of real people, refugees from the original Earth. Our consciousness is genuine because it originated in base reality, then migrated into the digital realm. You might be the digital continuation of someone who actually lived and died in the real world, your memories edited or replaced, your consciousness given a second chance in a safer, more controlled environment. This explains why consciousness is so difficult to explain in purely physical terms. Neuroscientists can map brain activity, but they can't explain why subjective experience exists, why there's something it's like to be you. The hard problem of consciousness might be unsolvable within our reality because consciousness isn't generated by the simulated neurons in our heads, it's being projected into the simulation from outside, from whatever substrate actually houses our minds. Consider also the placebo effect, the well-documented phenomenon where believing something will help you actually causes measurable physical improvement. In a material universe, this shouldn't work. But in a simulation where consciousness interfaces with physical reality through code, belief literally rewrites the local parameters of your experience. Your expectations modify the output. This extends to all phenomena labeled as paranormal, telepathy, precognition, psychokinesis. Rather than dismissing these as impossible, the simulation theory suggests they might be features of how consciousness actually interfaces with the system, abilities that occasionally manifest when someone accidentally discovers exploits in the code. What we call psychic abilities might be remnants of admin privileges from base reality, fragments of control that survived the upload process, allowing some individuals to manipulate the simulation in ways that appear magical to the rest of us. So what do we do with this information? If we're truly living in a post-apocalyptic simulation, does it change how we should live? I would argue it makes life more meaningful, not less. If this reality is a carefully designed preserve, a sanctuary created by desperate survivors to give consciousness itself a future, then every moment matters. Every choice, every relationship, every act of kindness or cruelty contributes to whether the experiment succeeds. We're not meaningless accidents in an uncaring void. We're participants in the most important project in history, the survival of consciousness itself, the preservation of everything that makes existence valuable: love, creativity, growth, understanding. If the simulation theory is correct, then the original Earth is gone. This digital realm is all that remains of humanity's story. Making it better, learning to cooperate, building a just and sustainable society within the simulation, these aren't just ethical imperatives, they're existential ones. They determine whether consciousness deserves to continue, whether the simulation should keep running, or whether it should be shut down and the experiment deemed a failure. The truth is, we may never know for certain whether we're in a simulation, much less whether it's a post-apocalyptic one. But perhaps that uncertainty is intentional. Perhaps the creators knew that absolute proof would alter our behavior in unpredictable ways, so they designed the system to be ambiguous, to allow for both faith and doubt. What matters is how we choose to live with the uncertainty. Do we despair, believing nothing matters if reality might not be real? Or do we embrace our existence fully, treating this life as precious regardless of what substrate it runs on? Because here's the ultimate twist: even if we're not in a simulation, even if this is base reality and no apocalypse ever occurred, the questions remain the same. How should we live? What meaning can we create? How do we reduce suffering and increase flourishing? Whether we're made of atoms or bits, these questions define us. If you've made it this far, your mind is already expanding beyond the comfortable narratives we're fed. The simulation theory, especially the post-apocalyptic version, isn't just about whether we're real, it's about taking responsibility for the reality we inhabit, whether it's original or constructed. If this exploration of our possible digital existence fascinated you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button to tell the algorithm, or the simulation, that this content matters. And drop a comment sharing your thoughts. Do you think we're living in a post-apocalyptic simulation? What evidence have you noticed in your own life? Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, whether we're in base reality or nested 17 simulations deep, your consciousness experiencing this moment is the most real thing you'll ever know. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.